Here we go. This is the last page of this work. 60. Sed ubi, but when, ablative absolute, omnibus rebus exploratus, Petrus is then nominative, so, but when Petrus, having explored all the matter thoroughly, or the region or whatever, he gave the signal on the tuba, on the horns, so they were blowing, and he ubited, he ordered his cohorts, plural, paulatim, adverb meaning gradually or little by little, to incidere, so that's just going forwards, and idem, a pronoun, and so the same faceted did the exercitus, the enemy, hostium of the enemy. So both sides are going forwards. Postquam, meaning afterwards, ventum est, they'd come, eo, to this place, undi, from where, possed, was able, conmittai prolium, they were able to commit to battle, and we have by the Ferentarius, and there's a footnote, the Ferentarii were light armed infantry stationed on the wings. They hurled their javelins and then retired behind the battle line. Okay, then another ablative, maximo clemor. So there was a great clash, cum, when concurrent, when they came together, they clashed together, the infestus signus. Infestus means they were hostile or enemies, and the signus would be the standards. So when all the two sides of the enemies clashed, there was a maximo clemor. Omittent doesn't mean omit, it means that it was sent, if you take the mito bit. So pila are javelins. So javelins were sent, and the res was gerrited. The matter was conducted with gladius. Gladius are those short Roman swords. Veterani, plural, so the veterans. Memores, so they're mindful of, takes the genitive, of their pristina virtues, of their former glories, you might want to say, or valors. Culminus, adverb, means it was really close combat, hand to hand. In acrita means fiercely or bitterly, and they were instarenting, looks like a historical infinitive, which if you just add things to the end, it looks like the subjunctive. Actually, historical infinitives are, they're not subjunctive, but it's a little trick there. If you just put the nt on the end, it'll make it make more sense to you. So the veterans instare, they press forwards, mindful of their former valours and victories, and they were bitterly fighting Cominus in short range. And illi, these are the other fellows. Horde timidi, they were not timid, they were not fearful, and they resisted. It was curtator, the battle was fought with max uma v, with the greatest striving and force, etc. 4. Interior, the interior decorator Catiline. Meanwhile, Catiline, with his expeditus literally means his feet, his peditus are ex, so they're unencumbered feet, so usually they call them skirmishers. With his unencumbered, he was vorsaring, he was spending his time with his light skirmishers, you might want to say, in prima acies, in the front line. He was succouring, bringing aid to the dative, to the laborantibusing, to the people who were labouring hard. And he was arcesserang, he was summoning or bringing integros, these are people who are fully fit, and pro means replacing the sorkis, replacing those people who are injured or bleeding or whatever they are. So he was helping the people who are hard pressed and bringing reinforcements to replace people, and he was pro-viderating. Pro usually means seeing in front, so he was anticipating maybe, and omnia means everything. If it's male or female, that is the es there. When it's a thing, it's just ia. It's neuters are used a lot. Multum, this looks like an adverb. Himself, ipsi, was pugnaring, with a historical infinitive again. Himself was fighting very much, you might want to say, and sapi, often he would feriri the hostem, he would strike the enemies. So remember, he was vorsaring in the front line, so you'd expect him to be killing people. And strenui militis, so he was either strenuous or someone who had a lot of energy, so he was of a strenuous soldier and of a boni imperatus and of a good general. Simul at the same time, he was exequabating, he was carrying out the officia, the duties of these genitives here. 5. Petrius, remember him from yesterday? So Petrius, ubi, when he visited, when he saw Catilinae in the accusative, contrary to what he was ratising, to what he was thinking, he was tenderaying with magna v, you might say contending or fighting bravely with magna v, with a great deal of force. This was contrary to what Petrius was expecting. He did something to his cohortum praetorium, Praetorian Guard. What have we got on them? Praetorian cohort was the general's bodyguard, made up of picked infantry and cavalry. Okay. In with the accusative. Into the medius hostis he inducated. So he led them in. We have in twice. You have in there as a preposition. So he led the cohortem praetorium into the middle of the enemies, and eos qui perturbatos, they were confused and perturbed, and others. So it looks like he's interficated in them. So he's killed these people. So they were perturbed and he killed them, and some others, alias, in alibis, in other places, resisting. So he's killed the people who were resisting in the dative, and it would consist of all of these groups here. And dende, then, utrumque, we've got on both sides it looks like, from his lateribusses, from his sides or his flanks, he aggredited, so he attacked Keteros, other people, the remainder maybe you might want to say. Manlius and Faesulanus. So Manlius is a fellow. This bloke here is a guy from Faesulanus, which we came across this week. In the premise, in the front rows, they catered, they fell, and they were present participating, plural, they were pugnanting, they were fighting. So they fell fighting, which is a good Roman sort of thing to do. Catilina, postquam, after his copias refuses, his forces were routed, and say himself with Porcus, with a few, he visited, he saw that he was left, or he saw that his forces had been routed and he was left with a few. Relictum there means he was left with them. Memor, I saw something like memor up here somewhere to me, memores. So he was mindful, again, took the genitive, of his generis and pristine dignitatis. So he's mindful of his genera. Gens is your family and your clan, etc. So he's mindful of his high birth and his pristina, which means his former dignity or standing in the community. We've got in with the accusative again, into the convertissimus. Again, Sallust using the U there. It's a superlative, so it's the most packed part, the convertissimus of the enemy. He incurred. He incurred again, same as what we had up here, inducated in. So he ran into the most packed part of the enemy, and ibi, and there, pugnans, present participle singular, nominative, pugnans, he was converted, he was stabbed. They dug a hole in him, basically. 61, the last chapter, said, but, most common but, confecto prolio, when the battle was confected or completed, tum, then, only then, vero, take that as the truth, Coniuratione, you could see then the truth of quanta, how much audacia, how much boldness, quantiqui, and how much enemi vis fuescent, and how much bravery, you might want to say, in the force had been in the army, exercitu of Catilinae. So when the battle's over, it's a strange place to see how much boldness. You'd think while the fight was on you'd see it, but basically when they sat back and reflected, it looks like, you could see how much boldness and courage had been in Catiline's forces. 2, 4, nam means 4. 4, ferry, almost or nearly, quisque, whoever there was, whom, while living, had caperated a locum. So anyone who living had taken a place, pugnando by fighting, him, he was tegabating. He covered this place with an ablative with his body, a missa anima, with his life lost. So that's probably why you can see there's boldness. All these people were fought to take a place, and there they had died covering the place with their body. And we'll just take viz as the daily dictionary word. Strength, singular only, force, power, might, violence. You don't want to confuse it with a verb. What have we got? Large body, resources, etc. Yeah, it's usually just the force. Power, might and violence. Yeah, it would mean violence as well. 3. Porcae autem. A few, however, or moreover. Quos medius. A few which are in the middle. The cohort praetorium. So the Praetorian cohort had disjecerated them, who had been in the middle. So they'd cast them out or driven them off. They were divorcious. It looks comparative. They were a little separated, Paulo by a little bit. Sed omnes, but all of them, tamen nevertheless, or yet or still, had considerant. They had fallen with vulnerabuses, with wounds, advorsus, ad meaning front on. So they all died from being stabbed in the front, not stabbed in the back, I'm guessing. 4. Catilinae viro. But Catiline, longe, by far or in some distance, a suis from his men, amongst the cadavers hostium, amongst the cadavers of the hostium, Catilina repertusses was found. So Catilina was found far off from his own people, amongst the bodies of the dead of the enemies, or these enemies would be the Romans, and Paululum. And for a little while, etiam even he was spirens. He was breathing. The ferociam qui animi, so the ferociousness of his heart or his courage, quam which he had haberated, which he had had vivis while living, he was retaining in his voltu, on his face. This is for this little time while he's still breathing. Postremo, finally, in the end, from omnia copia, from all the forces, nequi in prolia, neither in battle, nequi in fuga, nor in flight, had quisquam, anyone in genus civi, civis means citizens, in genus means a native-born citizens, so neither was there in the battle nor in the flight anyone who was a native-born citizen, captus est, so no one was captured who was a free-born citizen. And 6. Ita, thus, cunctae, all of them, everybody, sua hostium qui vita juxta perpercurrent. This is a reduplicated perfect. So all of them hadn't spared juxta, looks like jointly, sua and hostium vita. So they hadn't spared the lives of themselves or of the enemy. So thus all of them, well, it says had spared themselves, but it actually means they haven't spared themselves, because they've all died fighting, and there's a huge slaughter, basically. Their own lives and the lives of enemies, they had spared the same, or not spared the same. 7. Nequi, for neither tamen, nevertheless, the exercitus, the army, populi Romani, of the Roman people. So here's the nequi. Neither were they latem, neither were they happy, or adeptus erat, or had been obtained a victorium, a victory incruentum, without blood stains and bloodshed. So basically, the Roman army, nevertheless, of the Roman people, wasn't happy, or had victory been obtained without massive bloodshed. And we have a nam. 4. Quisque, each one, again, superlative, strenuous, most brisk and energetic and brave, etc., had aught, either occiderat in prolio, either fallen in battle, or had discesserated, or had left the battle, vulneratus, wounded, and gravita means seriously. 8. Multi autem, many, moreover, or whatever, qui who, from the castris, from the camp, gratia visandi and spoilandi, gratia is like causa, it's a post-positive, for the sake of seeing or taking spoils, had processerented from the camp. They had proceeded or gone out from the camp, either just have a look or to get some spoils. And volventes, present participling, they were rolling over hostilia cadavers, which are nudus, the bodies of the enemies, and looks like some when they went out for their look, they found amicum, they found friends, and pars again means some. Hospites, this is like a guest who stays in your house, or cognatum, maybe blood relatives, they reperibanted. They found either guest friends, or friends, or guest friends, or blood relatives. And to conclude the book, fure item. And there were, item likewise, qui those who cognoscerant, they recognised their inimicus suas, their personal enemies. 9. Thus, there was various things. Through all the exercetum, for all the army, there were various things. There was laetitia, happiness, maeror, grieving, luctus, gloom and mourning, and gordia, and rejoicing, agitabanting. That just means that that's how they were acting. So, that's it.